Okay. Matthew 25, verses 26 and 30 says, but their master replied, you wicked and lazy servant, if you harvested crops I didn't plant and gathered crops I didn't cultivate, why didn't you deposit my money in the bank? At least I could have gotten interest on it. Then he ordered, take the money from the servant and give it to the one with the 10 bags of silver. To those who use well what they are given, even more will be given, and they will have an abundance. But from those who do nothing, even what little they have will be taken away. Now those who used to serve it into outer darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth.
Amen. So the question is how did the master respond to the third servant in verse 6, and why do you think Jesus used such harsh words? Okay, yeah, I like that. I like it.
I mean, it says he was he called him a wicked and lazy servant, but I guess kind of harping on the second part of their question is why he used such harsh words.
All right.
It's just I think like the biggest thing we can waste is like the abilities or whatever God's given us, and that's the thing we waste. So, you know what I'm saying? Like if you're gonna waste something, I think the worst thing to waste is something that God's given you. So I think it just shows like how displeased he was with the fact that God gave him something and he chose to do nothing with it.
Yep. Anybody else?
I think it was because partially because he was trying to get his message across to some of the people that he was teaching to.
Michael? Anybody else?
I put that when the servant knew the character of the master and willfully chose to be disobedient, then it was his consequence to what he got. I mean, severely, he was treated pretty harshly. And James 1:22 says, but be doers of the word and not hearers only, deceiving yourselves or your own selves. And I couldn't find, I can't remember what the scripture was talking about, like when the servant who knew his master and he'd been with his master for however long, even if it was just, less time than the other two. But if he said himself, I knew you were a hard man, that you reap where you didn't sow, and that you, all those things, and still you didn't do anything with it. So it was like, even that knowing, you should have been, that should have lit a fire. Okay, I better do something because I don't want to get, on his bad side or get in trouble, whatever. But by doing nothing, it was kind of like his own choice to be disobedient and not even be, I don't know, diligent enough to just take it to the bank. I mean, he didn't have to do anything. The money would have made, it would have worked for itself.
Anybody else? Amen. It's I think kind of all three answers, if you combine them, it's definitely, for one, the audience that he was before, and plus, I think for us, like we talked about the talents earlier, is the fact that, each one of us have the opportunity to share our testimony. It doesn't have to be, like Jalen had said, I think on last week, it doesn't have to be like a, phenomenal testimony, but somebody needs to hear it. So, when you keep it to yourself, it's, to me, if I told, if I gave Deontay something and he knew Tamia was in need and didn't share, I would be frustrated with Deontay, not with Tamia. But I'd be like, dude, I gave that and I was hoping that you would at least share with your sister, and so, in that process, I think as a parent, or as God, he's hoarding keeping it to ourselves, keeping the gospel to ourselves. And I know on last week, because Jalen had asked a question about, but the master answered him, "You wicked and slothful servant, you knew that I reap where I have not sowed and gather where I have scattered no seed." Because you asked kind of what that meant, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, to me, I think that's just the opportunity that, he wants the best, you know what I'm saying? So doesn't matter where, if I don't sow over here, I still want the best from you. I still want you to do what's necessary. And I always think about the scripture, if you've done it to the least of these, then you've done it to me. I mean, so just because that seed wasn't implanted in that area, doesn't mean we stop spreading the seed. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you should always continue to want to try to grow and, especially when he's talking about what he's talking about here in that process. So, I mean, I think it's, for us as individuals, I mean, I think it goes back to that thing, to me, the scariest scripture of all, depart from me because I know you're not, you workers of iniquity. And they thought they had a personal relationship, and I think it goes back to the very beginning when Jalen mentioned about the master, knowing the master. A lot of people, he thought he knew the master. I mean, but truth behind it is we see that he truly didn't know the master. And so I think about that scripture where, Lord, do we not do these things? And so he says, depart from me because I know you're not. Anybody else?
I was going to bring up I think you might have mentioned it back when we were first talking about talents and talking about hiding it and hoarding it, how you just dug a hole and buried it. Not so much keeping it to himself, but keeping it from other people. And my point, I guess what I was going to say. The fact, I guess I was listening to something on the radio and they're talking about this song, and I forget who sings the song, but it was talking about dream small. And the whole point of the song was the fact that, when we want to do something, we want to make an impact, right? We think we need to do like the biggest thing and put the big sign out and make sure like everybody, we got fireworks going, instead of just, do the little things that, nobody thinks to, sweep at the end of the night or pick up that piece of trash that's been sitting in the corner for a week and everybody just keeps walking by it, or holding that door open for somebody coming out with the armload of groceries, just the small things. And just knowing that the little that you do, not so much, it having to be big. And just because his talent was just one, if we, kind of think about it and what it measures out to, just one thing, if you do that one thing well, what will people remember you for, as opposed to you got your hand in every time there's something going on, oh yeah, I volunteer, and you're at everything, but you're not very good at anything because you're everywhere, you're all over the place. But if you focus on the one thing that he did give you, it would make much bigger impact, because the Lord can use the small things that we do and multiply it. And I think the example they gave, we're talking about how Jesus took the 5 loaves and 2 fish, the small lunch of the little boy, and fed 5,000 with it. But it was him being obedient and sharing that little bit that he had, and what it accomplished.
Yep. Well, that's what, I don't know, I always look at people that play it safe. I mean, they never get to experience something. That's the reason why, I'm not a huge Michael Jordan fan, but I mean, there was a saying from Michael Jordan that says, I've missed, so many shots. I've been asked to be a winner and I've missed it 26 times. But the only reason I succeed is because I'm not afraid to fail. So I think that's what, even when it comes to sharing the gospel, I mean, not everybody's going to be receptive. But I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, we shouldn't fear being told no. That's one of the worst things we hate to hear. Rejection is a very harsh thing in our minds. I mean, think about, I know the younger people in the room may not understand, but I mean, the first time you ever tried to kiss that person and they're like, whoa, and you're like, and it was kind of a rejection, and you're set back. So, I mean, I think with us, when rejection comes, we feel kind of like neglected, or, we have that fear of being rejected. So I think with that, we can't have that attitude. I mean, that's the reason. I mean, he was afraid to invest because, what if I lose the money? I mean, what if you lose the money? I mean, what's the worst that's going to happen? I mean, so I think that we got to get where we're not afraid, we're not ashamed. We boldly know that what the Lord's given us, He gave us to share with other people. It says, according to verse 27, what is the least action the third servant should have taken?
Give it back. No, I looked at it, and it says that a talent was worth about 20 years of a day laborer's wage. So kind of like segueing into what you said the last one. Huh?
Mine has 384,000.
84,000 what?
384,000.
What?
Either way, it was a lot of money.
Either way, it was a lot.
Yeah, and it's like,
Still.
so it kind of reminded me of like in the Old Testament, whenever they had like the consistent manna,
Mhm.
and some people weren't like, they didn't trust that like
It was gonna be some more.
it was gonna be some more next
tomorrow.
day, so like they kind of do try and like hoard it away. It makes it the same. Like this guy had like what it said, equal to 20 years worth of pay, and instead of entrusting, and investing some of it and kind of putting work into it, he just put it away. Like, let me make sure I'm be safe. Let me make sure I don't lose it. So he's saying like the least he could have done is just give it back so that it can work. If you're not gonna take advantage of what God's giving you, then just give it back to him so someone else can make something happen and have an impact on the kingdom.
Yeah.
The scripture.
Hmm.
Verse 27 says, and the master himself says, thou oughtest therefore put my money to the exchangers, meaning you should at least put it in the bank so I could get interest.
Right, you're at 28.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, both points, well taken, because, if nothing else, you could have put it in the bank. I think about people that make a bunch of money, like if you were given $2 million, the interest alone would probably be so overwhelming that, you wouldn't know what to do with it to a degree. So, and so I think for him, that's what he's saying. The least you could have done is just put it in the bank. At least in the bank, it would have drawn some interest off of it. I'd at least made, however long he was gone, I at least would have made that amount. Because even at the end of the month, you get dividends from your bank,
Right.
So at a minimum.
At $4 a month, I make.
Yeah.
Minimum one.
Yeah, so even if it had been $2, that'd have been $2 more than what you did just by burying it. So, the least you could have done is just put it in a bank. I could have made something off of that. Anybody else? Who says? So it says 28, but I'll read 29, but also read 28. So take the talent from him and give it to him who has the 10 talents. For to everyone who has will more be given, and he will have an abundance. But from the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away. So the question is, explain to me in your own words what verse 29 means to you. So.
I can't remember what scripture it was, but it made me think about, I can't remember where it is, but it says, whoever holds on to something will lose it. And
Your life.
yeah,
Yeah.
I can't remember what scripture it is, but I'm going to think
Matthew
about
6
that.
and something.
What did you say?
Matthew 6.
Chapter 6. Whole thing? I'm just playing.
Somewhere in there. I think that's what it is.
Yep.
Not yet.
Anybody else while he's looking for that?
I guess I thought about where it talks about to whom much is given, much is required, and that aspect, like use it or lose it mentality. It's like, the Lord wants us to be faithful over the small things that He entrusts us with, and whatever that talent might be or gift. Because if we don't use it, then it will be taken away from us.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else? I thought of 2 Corinthians 9:6. It says, remember this, whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, and whoever sows generously will also reap generously. So, I mean, because like I said, for everyone who has will, for to everyone who has will more be given. So, I mean, God's not going to give us more if we haven't learned to use or work with what we have. I mean, same thing to me when it comes to trials and tribulations. We call them tests. I mean, if we can't pass that test, then God's not going to give us the next level test because we didn't pass the test before. So, I mean, it may require more, more prayer or actually going into a fast or, something to that degree. So, I mean, but I believe that, like I said, whoever sows sparingly. So, I mean, those that chose to just kind of, not do anything with it, I mean, he said, take that and give it to them, who did the most. So, I mean, anybody else?
I mean, you get out.
Oh, you got it? Huh?
I mean, you get out what you put in.
Yeah.
If you at the office 40 hours a week, working hard, then you're gonna see results. But if you're there for 5 hours a week, then you can't expect to get the same results as other person does.
Amen.
And maybe think of Luke 6:38, where it says, give, and it shall be given unto you. The measures pressed down and shaken together and running over, shall men give unto your bosom. But with the same measure that you meet withal, it shall be measured to you again. If you think about like giving,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's time, your talent, the money, or what it is that you treasure most. So sharing your family with other people, somebody that might not have a big family, you welcome somebody else in. You're giving, and I think when we give of ourselves, the Lord in turn, we get blessed in a way that we don't expect. Kind of like when we go to the assisted living, when we have residents, and they get excited to see you, just anybody coming and visiting with them. And so, we go planning to be a blessing to them, and when in turn we end up getting the blessing. So.
Amen. What you said you found that scripture?
It was John 12, verse 25. It says, those who love their life in this world will lose it, and those who care nothing for their life in this world will keep it forever.
Amen. Well, and that's what, because Jesus says, I came to give you life and I came to give it to you more abundantly. He also says, I'll do above anything that you can think or imagine. So, I mean, kind of like, to me, in some degrees, like Jalen was saying, I mean, and this is the part that drives me crazy about our society today, is there's people feel as though they should get the same thing that other person gets that worked their behind off all summer long, you know, and did the necessary things to get better, you know, whatever it may be, whether it be band, whether it be football, whether it be baseball, whether it be basketball, whether it be, you know, just education, you know, and so they feel as though, well, you know, hey, you know, I mean, and then you got, and this even frustrates me more, you got parents that fight for their kid to have the same amount of playing time, but yet all they did is just sit around all summer long to make themselves any better than what they were. And I believe that just not only in sports, but in education. You know, I mean, you know, a kid don't get an A just because he walked into the class. You know what I'm saying? He has to put forth the effort. And just like Jalen says, sometimes that means studying when everybody else is out partying, you know, because your grades are that important to you. You know, so I mean, again, I mean, what you put into it is what you're going to get out of it. So, we're on explain what verse 29 means. So, it's did you have anything you wanted to work on verse 29 there? I don't know, you being you probably run to the moon and back.
I could. You know, I think you touched on everything. I think that's kind of my world as a whole. Is that we all see ourselves as even, well, you know, and running the same race. When unfortunately we're not, because of what we put in. You know, it goes back to, you know, tell the kids all the time. So, you know, you're not gonna, nothing's gonna come up. You don't put anything in the ground. It's just it's about like you sit there and look all you want. Then you know nothing's gonna be. You're gonna get no product. So I think that, you know, a lot of times too, it goes back to, and I think we talked about this in some other sessions that we've been here, that I think we also, depending on how I'm connected, I get, you know, if I'm connected with you and things are rolling good for you, then I should be able to roll with you and things, same thing should happen to me. And then not necessarily work that way.
Good.
Just because I'm connected with you, you know, I can't live off of your faith and your connection with God.
Right. Well, and even with that, to me, I mean, but hanging around those kind of people should have some effect on you. I mean, you know, just like when you hang around people that are always mad, disappointed, frustrated, woe is me, you know, I mean, I know I've shared on multiple times. I hate being around those kind of people because, I mean, they can change the atmosphere in a room real quick. You know, that and people that have, how do you say this? A lack of faith, I guess, you know. Like, you know, man, we can do this. We can do this. You got that, you know, I really don't know if we can do it, you know, because, like, really, dude? I mean, 98% of us were on board, and then now you're starting to put doubt in people's minds. So, I mean, anybody else on verse 29? Yeah, man. It says, what warning do you receive from verse 28 through 30? In other words, how should you respond to this verse? Want to read that one more time? 28 through 30.
It says, then he ordered, take the money from the servant and give it to the one with 10 bags of silver. To those who use well what they are given, even more will be given, and they will have an abundance. But from those who do nothing, even what little they have will be taken away. Now throw this useless servant into outer darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth.
So what warning is from that verse, and how should we respond to it?
Don't do nothing.
Huh?
Don't do nothing. I mean, living a sinful life and doing everything God told me not to do is just bad and doing nothing. Kind of think of it like if you don't perform, you don't play. It's like the analogy earlier about sports and stuff like that, and it's kind of like, especially with like professional sports, if you don't perform, somebody else will get your playing time, and eventually you're gonna get cut because you're not adding any value to the team. You're not helping. You're not building up you're not doing anything to help build Christ's kingdom. So it's like you're worthless to Christ as far as your value to the kingdom. So it's like if you can't do it, He'll find someone that is willing and able to do.
I wrote being stagnant and like being comfortable where you're at, even though that's not going to do anything to help.
Anybody else?
Let's see, I put, be faithful over the small things God entrusts you with, and He will bless you with much more in the future. I can't remember where it is because that, as I talk about, it is probably before this where it is. Talk about well done, good and faithful servant, because I've given you the few things, then I'm gonna give you more. So it's like we've shown that we can be trusted with the little things that He has for us, and so if we take care of that, then on the other side, in eternity with Him, He'll give us, more responsibilities.
Anybody else?
I think this is my dad. It says laziness and procrastination does not end well, and there is no one else to blame for the end result itself.
Anyone else? Because I thought of Revelation 3:16. So because you are lukewarm, you're neither hot nor cold, I'm about to spit you out of my mouth. You know what I mean? And to me, it's almost better not to do anything than to fake it. I mean, you know what I'm saying? But at the same time, like Deontay said, it don't mean you just sit around and do nothing if you're in a relationship with the Lord. But overall, it's better not, I don't know. To be hot or cold, lukewarm. It says, and basically in the Hebrew, it says you're detestable. You taste horrible to the Lord. So I think, that's the reason why my prayer, really, and I was sharing with Greg the other day, is that God would increase my zeal and my fire about Him, because I don't want to become stagnant, kind of like you were saying, because I think that's just, I don't know, being stuck in the same spot all the time, to me, that's insanity, and expecting a different result from it. In fact, kind of like what Greg said about laziness, I sent him a deal today this thing just stuck out at me. It says, sin separates us from God and then blames God for the separation. I thought about the servant blame, well, you're a mean person on why we're in the environment that we're in, rather than pulling up our bootstraps and, making something happen. So, and I think, like we said, we should respond by, investing in other people. Because to me, one of the greatest rewards is when you invest in somebody and then you see the growth. And you may not see it immediately, but I think, I love getting messages from Terrell McKissick and Trent Steen. These were kids that we poured into from right at the beginning. And, to see the Lord, moving in their lives, just you like, oh man, that's, you feel good yourself, so. Anybody else? What do you say to me? Okay. I'm sure. It's, what could the talents and the story represent in your life?
Opportunities, like as far as like encountering people that you have an opportunity to share the gospel with. Kind of think about it, like God gave, or the master gave 1, 5, 1, 2, 1, 1. It's like you could place one person in your life, you know what I'm saying, that could come to you, or 2 or 5, and it's just like, are you going to take the opportunity and share with him and let him grow that? The more people you can reach, or are you going to just hide what you have to hide His word in the dark and just kind of bury it?
Amen. Anybody else?
I don't know, it could be, I mean, I guess it could be a physical, ability or a spiritual gift, either, one of the two that, either way, how you use it would be, like Jay said, important in reaching other people, ourselves. And I meet a lot of different people, and in just a few minutes of interaction while they're sitting in that chair telling me what they need done, we talk about all kinds of stuff, and so there's opportunity there. And you think of like spiritual gift, maybe if it's to encourage or if it's praying, do that, whatever, whenever you get the opportunity to pray for somebody, if they ask you, can you pray for me? You go, yeah, I'll pray for you. And don't wait till you go home. I mean, stop right there. Okay, let's pray and do it right then. But whatever the Lord, because He gives us opportunities. We get put in opportunities so many times. We don't have to actually go looking for it, but if we pray for it, Lord, help me, give me the opportunity to, shine for you and just wait, before you finish praying it good, something is going to come up where you get that opportunity. And we just need, like Jen said, make the most of the opportunity and don't waste it.
Amen. Anybody else?
And I've learned that in my almost 34 years, that the inopportune times that we have a chance to share is probably the most important. That's what you're saying. I think that, there's been times when I've overlooked, I think, a situation because I don't want to get involved, but in the back of my mind, it's, you feel that nudge, like, and so, you're like, there's nobody else here but me and this person, so it's, the person's room is down. So somebody, he's like, you needed it, and I'm like, I just don't. And then I walked away, and then like, should have said something, should have did something, should have, and you miss out on that. You miss out on those opportunities, and you don't know if you'll ever get them back. So the older I get, I take time now to like, what, no matter what it sounds like, no matter what it looks like, an opportunity presents itself to take advantage of it. I think the one for me is really, I've learned you got to be kind of transparent. I think we live in a time now where it's stuff that we struggle with or stuff that's happened in our past, sometimes we can be hesitant. But I think when you're transparent with people, it helps them to kind of say, okay, it's going to be okay. Yeah. I'm not the only one that's struggling.
Amen. Anybody else? Well, I got Romans 12. I guess it's kind of all the way down to 8. But I thought about this when it came to talents or, us doing what's necessary to share or, do what we need to do. But it says, I appeal to you, therefore, brothers, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies as living sacrifices, holy and acceptable to God, which is spiritual worship. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. For by the grace given to me, I say to everyone among you, not to think of himself more highly than he ought to think, but to think with sober judgment, each according to the measure of faith that God has assigned. For as in one body we have many members, and the members do not all have the same function. So we, though many, are one body in Christ, and individually members one of another. Having gifts that differ according to the grace given to us, let us use them. If prophecy, in proportion to our faith, if service and our serving, the one who teaches and teaching, the one who exhorts and exhortation, the one who contributes generosity, the one who leads with zeal, the one who does acts of mercy with cheerfulness. So, if we're doing what we're supposed to, each one of us have something to offer. And so, if we're going to do it, we need to do it with passion, you know, I mean, and then, you know, and I think about, you know, Matthew 9:37, which says, then he said to his disciples, the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. You know, I mean, which to me means that, going back to piggybacking off Jalen a little bit, it's important for each one of us to know that we're important and we need to be, how'd you say, we need to be of value to the team, to the kingdom. You know what I mean? That's the difference between the three. You know, the other two showed worth and value to the master, where the other one showed no progress whatsoever. You know, so I mean, for us, I think that's with our talents. You know, again, I think God will give us more when we use what we have, but He's not going to give us more until we've learned to use what we have, you know, to bring others closer to Him. You know, I'll go back to, you know, if I be lifted up, I'll draw all men. You know, so I mean, it's a continual thing. It's a daily thing. You know, it's a struggle. I mean, trust me. I mean, I'll be the first to tell anybody. You know, it's easy to share about Christ in the right environment, but it's hard to share it like on your job sometimes. You know, I mean, because some people rub you that right way, you know, make you say things that, you know, you shouldn't say. I had a coworker today, you know, that told me, man, I used the F-bomb too much. And I said, well, no, I can't help it. I said, yes, you can. And, you know what I mean? But with that, you know, I mean, I can't say that I have it. You know, my job has irritated me enough that I've done that. But well, you don't know who's watching you. You know what I mean? And so that person, you know, to me, may think that it's okay to have that kind of language when it's not. And I say that with these two guys in the room. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I have to be conscious of the fact that these two, they pay attention. They're sponges. You know, so I mean, I think our talents not only affect our environment, but they affect the people around us. So I mean, but I definitely think that they're supposed to be used wherever it be, spiritual, physical, you know, whatever. I mean, each one of us, I mean, we have a uniqueness about it, but I'm always going to remind us of that, and that we are masterpieces in God's eye, no matter what anybody thinks or says about you. Has anybody ever seen the guy that has no arms and no legs? I mean, that dude is powerful. And he talked about, you know, he always asked God why he was born that way. And then lo and behold, I guess he bumped into a 6-year-old kid or something like that that had the same thing. And for the first time, he felt the value of what it meant for him to go out and share the gospel. This kid needed to know that I'm going to be all right because look at him. And I mean, he's very awesome. I mean, he's a great motivational speaker. So.
Another comment that said, our talents, physical or spiritual ability is for God's glory, not self or even allowing it to be used by the enemy.
Amen. And that's, I mean, at the end of the day, that's the thing. You know, I think I told Greg the other day, I don't understand people that name ministries after themselves because they're the ones getting all the praise for it. You know, the Nathan DeBoer ministry. That dude's off the chain, man. Y'all man Nathan DeBoer. You know what I mean? I posted on Facebook the other day. I said, at the end of my life, if somebody knows me outside of anything other than Christ, then I failed at my job. You know, I mean, I think to me, it showed me yesterday. Deontay showed me on the way here. There's some cat that in New Orleans, they buried him. He's got, or they did the funeral, or whatever. I don't know, but he's in a Kyrie Irving shirt, has an Xbox and something else. I mean, I'm just like, really? I mean, that's what you want to be known for at the end of your life? I mean, you know what I'm saying? So, I mean, there's got to be more to life than that. You know, we even talked about, Greg sent it to me, and Deontay already knew about it. I mean, what's the dude's name? Lil Uzi?
Uzi Vert?
Yeah, Lucifer, that's if you say it fast. I mean, he told his people at his concert that they're going to hell with you. Me personally, I would have walked out. I mean, he used some other choice words, called them idiots. Y'all are so stupid. Y'all don't even know what y'all are going to hell with me. You know, and I mean, I saw, Greg asked me if I'd seen it. I said, no, I haven't seen that, but I've seen one of the videos, which is probably the most satanic video I've ever seen. But I mean, just imagine somebody coming in here and telling you, yeah, y'all are all going to hell with me. Like, not me, partner. I mean, I'm out of here, dude. I mean, but yeah, I mean, that's the society we live in. You know, I mean, he's using his talent for the enemy to recruit people. You know, I mean, so the same boldness that he spoke that with, we need to speak about Christ. You know, for his glory, like Greg, I'm assuming that was Big Greg.
Yes.
Yeah, for God's glory. Anybody got anything else?
I was thinking you said something about value, and I was thinking that kind of relating back to like things that happen today, like with voting. A lot of people don't vote because they think that their vote won't matter, and so thinking about along the lines of like talents and stuff. There are a lot of people that have like talents of public speaking or talents of like prophecy or interpretation, and then someone has like a gift of just compassion, but they don't see it as like the same value, even though they could be used in like the same way to reach the same amount of people if they would use it the way they're supposed to. So just thinking that a lot of people don't think that the things that are God given are of value because they're not like held to like a high standard.
Right.
So I don't know, that value we're just like stuck out.
And that's the thing. I mean, again, like I say all the time, I mean, the outside, it can look all good and dandy and, you know, you can have all the bells and whistles, but if the kidney stop working, I don't care how good you look on the outside. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, you find out what's real valuable real quick. Because, you know what I mean? Had many things and died of a heart attack. You know, I mean, so, just like you said, I mean, the thing that I think sometimes we think is the least important can turn around and possibly be the most important for another individual. You know, going back to Jalen and the testimony. I mean, somebody's telling, you know, I've known Jesus my whole life. I've not got into too much trouble. I mean, I grew up in the church. You know, I mean, some people may think that, oh, well, you didn't have no fun, or, you know what I'm saying? But there may be a kid that needs to hear that. You know, hey, I'm good, man. I love life. I didn't miss out on nothing. You know, I mean, so, but I think that, yeah, absolutely. We try to rate them like sin. We try to value sin on, okay, this sin is worse than this sin. No, sin is sin. At the end of the day. I mean, so I think we do the opposite when it comes to spiritual. You know, oh, they got the gift of healing. Their gift is so much more better than mine. All I can do is encourage somebody.
You look at things with a earthly, like we place values on things based off of earthly standards, you know? Like God doesn't ever, like not once in the Bible does, you know, God say, you know, being compassionate or being long-suffering. Any of those things are more valuable than the other, but it's kind of like we base our value of things off of what society says is important.
Well, kind of like prayer too. I think somebody that can yell or, you know, whatever, says the right words. Think about that tax collector and the Pharisee. Just because you have all the right words doesn't mean your prayer is always sincere.
But with all those words, just like you said in Corinthians, you can make all that noise, and it all is noise if it's not done
From the heart. So, good stuff, good stuff. Anybody else? Hey man, well,